Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and many cards. Altenew's July release came out this week. I will have a link to the release in the description box below the video. So many good things. So many good things. This is first video of more than one. I will have others. But for today's video, I am focusing on most of the press plates that they released, because they released multiples, and I love my Better Press. I'm making it my mission to use it more. I do have a link in the end screen at the end of the video to the playlist that I'll keep adding to of videos I've done so far using the Better Press. And with these, I started out with like traditional, and then I just kept using them in different ways. So 5 ways to use Better Press plates to just cuz. So yeah, we'll go through all the different ways I used them, all what I did for all of these different cards. Again, links to everything I used will be in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links, end up placing an order, I get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. So it helps pay the bills. And I'm also part of an Instagram hop for this release. So if you look for my Instagram will be also linked below. It always is. So you don't follow me on there. And if you find these cards that I made on my Instagram, you can check it out. Giveaways, all the fun things. Love it. And that's all I have to say. Let's get into making all these cards. So the first one I'm going to use is the Altenew Blossoming Bouquet press and foil plate. Large florals. Love. And this first, it's going to look like I'm going backwards, but there's a method to the madness. I'm going to press this onto what will be the inside of my card, because I'm going to use a really pale ink, and this just will save me the aggravation. So this is technically like the second way to use press plates, but does it really matter what order? Anyway, so I have the plate on my little Better Press, and then my card base, and I'm using a very pale ink. This is Polar Bear from the new Fresh Dye Ink Quad, the Northern Shore Ink Quad. So very, very pale ink, and I've shown this in other videos using the press plates. I'm really like how Altenew's Fresh Dye inks work with the press plates, especially because it has to do also with they're the felt ink pad, so they're firmer. You can use technically almost any ink pad. You just have to be a lot more careful if they are, metallics, pigments, and ink pads that are similar to that, like the foam ones that are very squishy. You just got to pay more attention, because otherwise you're going to get ink absolutely everywhere and could turn into a disaster. But these ones work. It's hard to show this color on camera, but I ran it through, and it's so pretty. And you can kind of see right there, like at the bottom of it, how that is pressed. And this is just standard. This is Simon Says Stamp's 120-pound smooth white cardstock. But even with just that, the impression you get, chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. So because all I used was a Fresh Dye ink, I just wiped this off with a baby wipe. It's good to go. Now we're going to use it the main way, the standard go-to. So I have some Altenew Cold Pressed Watercolor paper here, and I'm going to tape that to the clear plate. I always forget. One is called the Chase, one is called the Platen. I think the clear plate's the Platen, and the gray magnetic plate is the Chase. I always forget. It's the clear one. Whatever. So I've got that in place. And then this time I'm inking up this Blossoming Bouquet with the Better Press ink, the black ink. And this is the large size ink pad. They came out with this more recently. This is more meant for the big plates, which I'm going to use a couple of those a little later. That's what this big ink pad is more meant for, is when you're inking up those large, solid, A2, A7 size plates. Because same thing, you don't want to get like ink everywhere. So the little one that it comes with would work great. I just pulled it out because why not? So I inked it up, and then same thing. Ran this through my Platinum 6 die cut machine, and again, that's the only hard thing about doing these videos. I can't show you guys like the detail and like how it's pressed in. It's just fabulous. Anyway, with these, to clean them, because the letterpress ink, it is actually a hybrid of like archival ink, and it is a pretty solid ink. So archival cleaner is what's recommended. I put a bit of it on a cloth and I clean it this way. You do not need to clean your plates every single time. Like, this ink is fine, but because I switch back and forth with all mine, with, you know, I'll be hot foiling, I'll be using a really, really pale ink. I clean them. It's just better. It's what works for me. So I clean my plate, set everything aside, and then I'm going to watercolor this with Altenew's fresh dye inks, because these inks are water reactive. They will work for this. I cannot recall for the life of me if I've ever shown in videos watercoloring with these. So if not, hooray. If I have, welcome back. I can't keep track anymore. Anyway, I'm using the rest of the blues in that little Northern Shores collection, and I'm just smushing them onto my little plastic watercolor palette. I'm also using greens from, what is the name of this quad? The Jade Dreams quad. And then I'm going to use a couple colors from the Sunkissed Delights quad as well. Those came out like last month or the month before. Just very pretty colors. So I smushed them on there. Off to the side, off camera, I have my little jar of water. And I'm using one of my little Altenew watercolor brushes. And wet the brush, swirl it in the ink, paint. Super simple. I've sped this up consistently, considerably. Sped this up just to save us all the time. I basically just go lightest to darkest with the inks. I fill it in first with the lightest ink, and then I go in with the darker colors, and I drop them in where all the line detail is. You know, plates like this, whether it's a plate or a stamped image, anything like that, when they've got all this line detail, you just can follow it. So where all the lines are, obviously that's darker areas, more shading. So that's where I put all my darker colors, and I just go from there. So I did all the greenery. I did the flower centers. I'll actually come back and add a little bit of a darker shade to the flower centers as well. And then I worked on the petals, just one petal at a time, because it just worked easier that way. So it was like lightest color, and then go from like the medium to the darkest color. Love it. And then I'll add that little darkest shade right onto the flower centers, and that finished it off. And it's just fabulous. And then I use the coordinating wafer die. This press plate, there's a bundle. You can get everything individually, so I'll have links. But there's also, because there's the coordinating wafer die, there's also a stencil set, which I'm going to use. And then there's also a bundle, because there's also an embossing folder. That's the one thing I didn't use today, was the embossing folder that coordinates as well. So if you really like this floral, you could skip the press plate completely if you're just not into it. But yeah, there is the embossing folder and the stencils and then the coordinating dies. So there's options. So with the floral, there is 2 sentiments as well. So I took just a leftover piece of that watercolor paper and then ink blended one of the blue inks onto it. And then this I'm going to run through with the letterpress and the black ink and press this right into that little piece of watercolor. So I've got my little sentiment for this card. So I trimmed everything down, added the little bit of ink, taped that to the clear plate of my letterpress, inked up the sentiment with that letterpress black ink, run that through my machine, and then I'm going to die cut that with the coordinating wafer die. So run that through, and then I've got a nice little coordinating sentiment for my card. And then I'll just die cut that with the coordinating sentiment die. And then I kept the rest of the card just very clean and simple. I know, shocker, but trust me, Splatter's coming out. It's coming out soon. We all know. So I added a little baker's twine to my card front. I had popped up the floral with some Simon's Big Mama foam tape, adhered the sentiment, and then added a few of the Northern Shore enamel dots. And that finished off card number 1. So then the third way you can use press plates is in your hot foil system. So I'm using the Glimmer hot foil system. And press plates, hot foil, amazingly. You cannot use your hot foil plates in your letterpress. I've talked about this in other videos. But you can use your press plates in your hot foil system, and they do the detail. Just watch. If you haven't seen this, it's love. So I've got the plate and the sentiments, And then I have some of Altenew's light copper mirror hot foil roll. So I had my system heating up, put the plates and the sentiments, put the foil with the pretty side of the foil touching the plate. And then I've got some smooth white cardstock, stuck that on there, press the timer, let that run till the timer light goes solid, and then run this through my Platinum 6 machine. And I go slow. This is still sped up in editing a little bit, but especially when I'm hot foiling, I roll it through very, very slowly just to give it all the pressure, get that hot foil pressed into the cardstock, and it's just like magic. Just get that off of there, and then I can peel this off, and you guys, it's just perfection. Seriously. I loves it. And then technically I could have saved that foil and done the reverse. I didn't think about it till I was creating later with a different hot foil plate. And so then that'll be another way you can use this. We'll get to it. So for this, I'm using the coordinating stencils and all the same inks, because I was like, you know what, we're going to keep this somewhat simple, because I ended up, like I said, making multiple cards, doing multiple things. So I used the same inks to stencil, and it took me a couple parts of this stencil to realize how things were actually lined up. Like, it did those two petals plus that one if I'd lined it up properly the first time. But again, it takes me a minute. With Altenew's layering stencils, the packaging on the inside shows all the things, and there's arrows and it points everything out, and I had it in front of me and I was looking at it, but my brain wasn't computing. So it was by this point that I realized, I was like, oh, you can do multiple spots at once. Makes sense. So now I got it. Now we're getting there. So I'm just using my little mini blending brushes and just 2 shades of the blue ink. I was using the Icy Water and the Winter Lake for these. So just adding the lighter blue and then keeping the darker shade more, again, towards like the base of the petals, etc. And then greenery, same thing. Gonna use the same greens. There's a final part on the final stencil of this layer. You can see it there on the left-hand side of the screen. That's like the branch and whatnot of these like greenery. That's for the embossing folder. If you have that, you would use that part of the stencil. You don't need it here because it's been pressed into the cardstock, but that's what that is for. And it points that out on the packaging. So always pay attention to Altenew's packaging. Everything's done for us. So I will come back to that other stencil because it's got the centers for the flowers, but while I'm doing the greenery, I'm going to get it all done. So same thing. I just used 2 shades of the green inks. I was using Misty Sage and Mossy Meadow to add the greens. And same thing, lighter green first, and then I would go in with the slightly darker shade and keep that more towards kind of the base of each little leaf there. This came together so quickly, and the foil, it's just love it. So then the last little part, same thing as what I was using for the watercoloring. So I used I think Amber Blaze, yes, and then it's a smidge of that melted butterscotch for the flower centers, and then coordinating wafer dies, die cut these with, and same with the sentiments with the coordinating wafer dies. And then once those are die cut, I am going to pull out one of the other like big plates from this release, one of the solid ones that, like I was mentioning, that's where you want the bigger ink pads and whatnot, because some of these big solid press plates with the regular better press little inks and little cubes, can take way too long, let's be honest, to ink up. But before I pull it out, I'm going to pull it out in a second. I'm going to use the floral and just press it onto a panel of smooth white cardstock with that lightest green shade of ink. So this was pistachio. So got the cardstock onto the clear plate, inked up the press plate with the pistachio ink, and then I'll run that through my die cut machine to press that into the panel. And then my card base for this is going to be a really dark green cardstock. So, which is from Concord 9th. I think it's avocado. So while I've got my better press out though, or like sitting on my desk and filming, I'm going to press what will be the background for the front of this card. And this is where I'm going to use the big one, the big plate. This is the Foliage Fiesta. And this guy is big. Like, he's bigger than A2. You'll see as I lay it down. Like, he's big. He's hefty. I love him. And oh, again, the detail. The detail. So, got that lined up. I got another just panel. This is just white cardstock. You know, I want the pattern more than like actual full-on impression. And I'm inking this up with that same pistachio ink. And yeah. This one too, like this one hot foiled would look amazing. This one though, pressed in a better press ink and then watercolored would, like, so many options. Anyway, I kept it simple because this is just the background. You know, the floral is the center of attention on this, but ran that through and yeah, like, it's beautiful. So I trimmed that down with my paper trimmer, so it'll be smaller than the card base, which, like I said, is, I think, avocado cardstock. And I did the same thing with the panel that will go on the inside of the card. So I got those trimmed down to like 4 by 5 1/4. And then I'm going to just adhere the inside to the inside of the card. I decided for that, the sentiment I chose to use, I'm just going to ink blend one of the green inks onto that, just make it stand out a little bit. So ink blended that, and then same with the assembly. Adhere the inside panel to the card base with my craft tacky glue, and then I'm going to do the same thing with the one that I pressed with the Foliage Fiesta. I had added some baker's twine to it because I just happen to have baker's twine in my stash that went with all these colors. I love when that happens. So I had put the baker's twine on there, adhered the card front. I popped this foiled floral with, again, some Big Mama foam tape. I'll adhere the sentiment into place with my craft tacky glue, and then I'll add a few more of those little Northern Shore embellishment dots, enamel dots. My brain was stopping again. So I'll get a few of these into place, and that finishes off the second card. So far, 3 ways to use press plates. The standard, you know, with better press ink, etc., and then with just regular inks, and then hot foiling. And now we're moving on to this other huge press plate. This, of course I wanted this one. This is the inked Poppies, and as I show, like, it is big. If you like doing big cards, this one's amazing. Like, this will be gorgeous on like 5 by 7 cards. I'm going to hot foil this one again with that same light copper mirror hot foil. So press plate face up on my Glimmer hot foil machine, the foil with the pretty side, the copper side facing the plate, smooth cardstock, let the timer go till it went solid, and then run this through my die cut machine. And again, it is peeling off the foil and it's just perfection. I will say I did try to hot foil this onto watercolor paper. It didn't work for me. I honestly think the reason it didn't work though is because this one has so many solid areas. I have found I can hot foil on watercolor paper with press plates if they're more like just thin line art. But if there's a lot of solid area, it gets a lot more difficult because you don't have, like, watercolor paper has so much texture to it. I need to get Altenew's hot press watercolor paper. Now that I'm thinking about it, that might work because hot press watercolor paper has a very smooth finish. I'll put that on the back burner. I will get some at some point and test it out. And if someone has, let me know. But yeah, it didn't work for me, so I'll revisit it at a later date. But just hot foiling it onto cardstock was beautiful. And then I pressed it onto another panel of smooth white cardstock, just using the lightest, like, orangey shade. That was Peachy Glow, because that'll go on the inside of my card. This is where the splatter comes out, because I'm going to make, like, very simple cards with this inked Poppies press plate. I went super simple with these because it speaks for itself. Although, again, I want to press it with black ink and, like, watercolor this one too. I ran out of time, you guys. But I was like, oh, watercoloring this would be so just gorgeous. It's beautiful. So anyway, I added black splatter with my Altenew black gouache, put it on my little palette, watered it down. I'm just using a little brush this time. I'm going to bring out the fan brush for the next one. But added a little bit of splatter, let that dry. Wasn't sure if it was dry when I was cutting. That's where I was like, oh no, am I getting like, black wash everywhere? It was fine, but I trimmed this down to slightly smaller than my card base. Made sure I didn't have any wet splatter anywhere. Everything was good. Trimmed down the other panel, same thing, 4 inches by 5 1/4. And then my card base for this one is another Concord 9th cardstock. I think this is Cayenne. Yeah. And adhered the panel on the inside. For the panel on the outside, same thing. I had found some baker's twine in my stash that just kind of went with the darker cardstock. So wrap that around and then start the knot. I used my little reverse tweezers to hold the knot into place. Make my little bow. There we go. Get it the way I want it. Remove the reverse tweezers. Pull everything tight. Yep. And because this one is much more clean and simple, I like to use thicker foam tape. So this is where I'm using the Altenew's foam tape, which is, my brain again just stopped. Something dimension. Why is it not showing up in front of my face? Instant dimension. There we go. The Altenew's instant dimension foam tape is what I would call like standard thickness. So I like that with more simpler things because it just elevates everything. So the next way you can use your better press plates is to reverse foil. If you have any one like this that's a large one that has flat surface area, is you flip it around upside down. And so that's what I did with the big Foliage Fiesta. So I have it upside down so that only the flat side is facing up. And then I put that trash foil that I used for the inked poppies on it and a piece of smooth cardstock. And this time I ran it back and forth through my die cut machine. I don't do that very often, but with this, I don't have to worry about anything shifting because it's just a flat surface. And that's going to press that foil into the cardstock. It makes a bit of a mess on my plates. I don't care. I'm fine with that. And there we go. So then I've got the reverse image. I could have done that with the first one, but like I said, I wasn't thinking and I tossed it before my brain caught up with the rest of me. But it's a great option. So I've got the reverse foiling. I took the sentiments from that first plate set, the Blossoming Bouquet, and I just grabbed some opaque white foil from my stash and foiled the sentiments onto just a scrap of black cardstock. Love. So I foiled those. I used accordion wafer dies to die cut them. And then this panel, I'm going to also splatter with black gouache. I didn't get perfect foiling results. Again, perfection's overrated. I'm not too worried about it. It's still ridiculously gorgeous. And I wasn't going to toss it, but I was like, I'll just add a little extra black splatter to kind of cover up some of that. It works. So this time I used my fan brush for it and put the gouache onto my little palette, watered it down a little bit so it gets more splattery, and then splattered this onto the background, let that dry. So the final way that I'm going to show to use press plates is called blind letterpress, and that's using it without any ink whatsoever, just to create an impression. You can do it this way, and I'm doing this on watercolor, like the Altenew watercolor paper again, just to really show the impression. You can also do this like how you would emboss with like wafer dies in a die cut machine, like using a little rubber mat. I think I've shown that with better press plates in a past video, but I don't remember. But I didn't want a super deep impression. I just wanted like the classic better press impression. So I'm using the Essential Textures Basketweave, and look at that. Oh, you guys, the texture is amazing. I love it. So that's without any ink, just blind letterpress, just to create texture, more subtle, love. So I did that on the watercolor paper, and then for what will be the inside of my card, so I'm going to do this on the card base just like I did in the very beginning, and I'm inking up that same Basketweave plate, this time with the pale green ink, so the pistachio ink, and I had post-it tape right at the score line just in case so I don't get anything past the score line on my card base, and then ran that through the machine, and oh, chef's kiss. Love it. So to finish off this card, I pulled out this little die set that came out a couple months ago, 2 or 3 months, I forget. It came out earlier this year. This is the lovely Floral Hat die set from Altenew. I I've had it sitting here. I ordered it. It's been sold out. It was sold out forever. It might be sold out right now. I hope it's not, because it's just fabulous and it's so big. And I knew this too, but it's another thing where it's like once I got it assembled, I was like, this thing is huge. So I die cut it with Desert Storm cardstock for the hat. And then all the little greenery accessory pieces, I die cut from just smooth white cardstock. I stuck all the pieces to my Ultra Sticky Mat, my Altenew Ultra Sticky Mat. And then I used the same inks that I was using for everything else to ink blend all of these pieces. Because again, just keeping the colors the same, less things on my desk because I had stuff everywhere. It was chaos, but it was also a lot of fun. So very simple ink blends on all of these pieces. I did the blues on the larger floral piece. Started with the lighter shade, and then I'll go in with the darker shade just again towards kind of the base of each of the little petals. And this die set, along with a lot of Altenew set, it's another one of the keyhole ones, so that's why they have those weird little holes in them, and it just makes it super easy to line up. You can't see it, I don't think, at all on screen. Not only do they have the little keyholes, but there's also like numbers that get pushed into the cardstock as well, so that you know which wood is layer 1, layer 2, etc. Love it. The less thinking I have to do, I love it. I love that all like the people behind the scenes that are designing all the things with all my favorite crafty companies. I love that there's someone that figures all this out. You know, they plan it all out, they figure it all out, and then they put that on the die, the packaging, etc., etc. So people like me don't have to think so much. I appreciate that. I can use my brain space for other things, man. So yeah, the hat, super simple. Like, yeah, lining up with the keyholes, you kind of don't even need it with this one, but it's there, you know, and isn't it cute? So you line all that up, and then the little band covers that little keyhole. So then it's all covered, and you've got this cute little sun hat. So assembled it at just how it looks on the packaging. Again, I wasn't about reinventing the wheel with this one. I just wanted a cute little hat to go onto my finished card. So same thing with the florals. Everything just lines up. And then there's like pieces like this. I really like it with things like this, like little flower centers, or just, you know, sometimes it's like, I don't know where this tiny little piece is supposed to go. And it's like, oh, it lines up. It lines up. Again, the less thought I have to do, the better. It's better for all of us. So assemble my little flowers and then just adhered all of this to this little hat. And yeah, it's so cute. I'm so glad I finally got a chance to use this. So adhered my little bits into place with the craft tacky glue. And once everything is adhered, I ended up off camera. I tucked a thin little foam square under that little flower because it's just kind of like floating there after I had adhered it. So before I adhered it to the actual card, I stuck a little foam square behind it just to hold everything, you know, really in place. So got all that adhered, and then that background that I blind letterpressed onto, trim that down to smaller than my card base. So same thing. I'm pretty sure this was another like 5.25 by 4 inches. And then my card base is that one that I had pressed it with the light green ink, and it's going to be another top folding A2 note card. And I'll use that final little sentiment that I had pressed or hot foiled with the white opaque foil. Adhered that into place. I'd added a little more baker's twine, you know, because that's another bonus to making everything matchy is I just kept using the same embellishments on everything. And then I'm going to adhere the card front to my card base with the craft tacky glue, and then I'll add a few more of those embellishments, and that's going to finish off all the cards. I decided not to add like stamp sentiments, anything to the insides of any of these cards. The press plates stole the show, really. I just felt it wasn't necessary, but you could always go in like when it's time to actually like send the cards, that sort of a thing. You could add a sentiment, but this keeps them a little more open-ended within reason. Like it's still a thank you card, but it could be thanks for anything, you know? So those were all my cards and the 5 ways. So standard letterpress as is, hot foiling, beautiful, love, using them with Other inks, like dye inks, again, love. That's what I've done on all the insides. I wish you guys could see, especially that floral. Like you can feel it. You can feel the texture. It's love it. Anyway, again, hot foiling. So that was the third way. So regular, using it with the regular way with Better Press ink, using it with fresh dye inks or just anything non-Better Press. Hot foiling, reverse hot foiling, using just the back of any of the large flat Better Press plates, and then blind letterpress, where you don't use any ink at all. And you can experiment using it with different cardstocks. And then, like I said, you can try it with like a little rubber mat and dry emboss that way in a die cut machine. You will get a much deeper impression if you do that. So you just kind of got to experiment. But it's so fun. And yeah, those are all my cards for today. Like I mentioned in the intro, I'll have everything linked in the description box below the video for those to check out that are interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton and I very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I would love to have you. And I will see you all very soon in the next video. Bye.